morning. Now, if you're feeling a little bit under the weather this Monday, well, what do? Do you reach for the nearest aspirin bottle, or do you call your acupuncturist? Well, today's show could change your attitude totally, because we're investigating the world of complementary medicine. Now, we'll have demonstrations from some of the country's top complementary health experts, and I'll be asking just how you go about sorting out the cranky from the credible. But first, we thought anyway it would be a very good idea to invite along a couple of open-minded observers to see just how convincing our experts really are. So I know you're going to welcome our two celebrity guinea pigs, Lorraine Chase and Simon Williams. I like your bag. Of complementary medicine and author and broadcaster. So will you welcome Michael Van Straten. I don't think you're going to need Lorraine's handbag, are you? So maybe we'll pass it along a bit. We're not taking it away, because we're going to put them to the test, really, to some of the therapies. And I want to take them over to the other side of the studio to join our experts before they get cold feet all together. So let's go. Uh-oh. So Simon, you're going over to join Gary. Yes, and Lorraine obviously into this particular seat. And let me just explain that our first demonstration is going to be by the leading aromatherapist, Danielle Ryman. Now, it all smells divine, Danielle.
Oh, thank you.
Without getting too complicated, now can you just explain the principle of aromatherapy?
Okay, it's quite complicated. So there's two kinds of aromatherapy. The one practiced by practitioners and the one practiced by anybody. And you get a very quick result, straight away.
Because in France, I know, for example, that some people take a lot of the treatment internally, and that can be very dangerous.
Yes, but that's only given by doctors. You have to be a doctor to be a practitioner in France, and it's not the same in this country.
Can I just add a warning as well, that in some cases, pregnant women, it does not have a very good effect on them.
Yes, and a lot of essentials should not be sold to the public for that reason, and hyssop and some sage should really be banned completely.
Sage in particular?
As well, yes, yes. Not clary sage, but sage.
Sage. Okay, now you heard Lorraine talking about stress. That's been the big factor of late. Now, what would you recommend for a calming influence?
Calming influence, so we have something, after all this play and all this hard work, we have lavender, which everybody has got in their garden. We have another one, which is chamomile. Everybody's got it, and I've got it in the front. There's chamomile, it looks very big flowers, and that is lavender.
It's quite expensive to produce all of this, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, lavender, for instance, you need about 500 pounds of plants to obtain 1 kilo. So 2 pounds of essential oil.
That's astonishing, isn't it?
And you need about 800 pounds of chamomile flowers to obtain 1 kilo. So it shows you quite an excessive extraction. And then you need, on that one, 2 tons of these orange leaf flowers to obtain 1 kilo.
2 tons?
Yes, so that means that you really have to spend a lot of that.
Let's take the lavender, because a lot of people are used to this, growing in
lavender
garden.
is everywhere.
Yes, exactly. So how would you give that to Lorraine?
Well, okay, so with Lorraine, we're going to demonstrate. We don't want to use it pure, because sometimes there's cases of allergies. So we will use 1 drop of lavender, which I put in the dish. And
you have to water that down, as it were, don't you?
Yes.
Oil it down in this case.
Yes, 1 tablespoon of grapeseed oil.
Can you use any kind of oil?
Yes, avocado oil and almond oil are very useful.
As long as it's not the cooking oil, obviously.
That's right, you mix it. All right. Even cooking oil like soya is used as well.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, very good.
Right, now, Lorraine, can you, so that everybody can see it, can you swing your hair the other side,
the other way,
so that we can have a look?
Yeah.
So much hair, my goodness.
Yes, she's very lucky.
Very healthy hair. So is this just an ordinary massage you're going to give?
Well, just a gentle massage, just for pressure. That's it. So I'll just like that, and you just massage gently your neck with the oil.
How does that feel, Lorraine?
Oh, it's lovely. Oh, it's tender though. Just you can feel all the lumps and bumps.
Yeah, we can't go too far. Yeah. And then I will make you sniff the oil. Okay.
So breathe deeply. What would you, like, if you had to do it really quickly, would you just maybe rub it on your hands and just whiff it?
We want an effect of well-being straight away. She's tired, tense, and stress is in everybody's life. So you want to have a quick remedy. So what you do, you put 1 little drop of lavender in an inhaler. You will add a bit of hot water. to it.
This is your inhaler.
Yes, that's right. And it's very, very hot, so...
Oh, I thought we would have to drink it.
No. Oh, it's very hot, yeah. And
It's very hot. That could have been me saying that.
Oh, right, okay.
And
you just inhale the fumes, okay? Now, if you don't...
Very strong?
yeah.
If you don't have...
Have a whiff.
Yeah.
Have a whiff.
I'd quite like to have a whiff of this.
It's very strong.
Well, it is.
No,
I'll probably
nice.
finish it now.
All right. Now, if you don't have one of those, because not everybody one of these French apparatus, which is quite difficult, you put a little bit of this oil in your hands. Gloria, give me your hand.
Okay.
All right. And Lauren, give me your hand. And you can do your own inhaler. Nice.
Oh, it's lovely.
And you just spend
I'm asleep already.
a few minutes inhaling the
Nice thing about
fumes.
that is it almost is like when you put crystals when you go in the sauna.
That's right.
That's right.
Slightly hits the
So listen, obviously this is a very simple thing,
That's a
just
simple
for
way.
demonstration. And Lorraine, you could be using that in your dressing room, and I could be rubbing this on my hands. But I just want to make one point. I mean, you are making this very simplistic, but this doesn't really cure anything, does it? It just makes you feel better.
Yeah. There is no miracle cures, as we know, and we have to be very careful what we use.
So sufficient to say then, just in closing, that it's like a cosmetic exercise. It just makes you feel better.
Yes, we're just looking at being better quickly.
Also, if you feel better when you do have any illnesses, obviously if you have a better well-being, you're better to cope with them. So
Lorraine, I'm
there
going to
is-
leave you whiffing that, because I know you're
Love
loving
it.
it. And I'm going to move on to acupuncture. This is the moment, Simon, that I've been really looking forward to, all these needles. I'd like to introduce you to Gary Traynor, who is our acupuncturist, and I think you're going to enjoy this exercise as well.
Oh, thoroughly, yes.
Now, you got a bit of a tennis elbow, which you want to concentrate
Well,
on.
I'm against my better judgment, I'm going to have a crack at my tennis elbow, because my forehand is giving me a bit of jip in here. What can you do for that?
Nothing.
Simple as that.
I
Actually,
think a
Gary,
tennis stroke I can do nothing at all, I'm sorry.
will you explain the principle, though? I know this goes back, centuries, but what in this modern day, then, is the principle of acupuncture?
Well, the history of acupuncture, the first recorded texts are about 5,000 years old. Nowadays, we need to have a bit more of a medical foothold for acupuncture to sort of go into the future. I feel that you can't keep going backwards, that you must go forward. And
So we won't talk about the yin and the yang or anything
we won't
like
do
that.
yins and yangs and five
It's a
elements.
family show, Gloria.
What they found recently, it was scientists doing research into nerve stimulation, and they found that there was an increase in the production of endorphins and enkephalins. Now these are a substance which have a very similar chemical structure to morphine, and when you stimulate nerves, these endorphins are released into your system, and morphine having a pain-relieving and a calming effect. So then what they did was they cross-referenced over to acupuncture, and they realized that 80% of acupuncture points were on nerve pathways or nerve endings. The Chinese didn't actually know the nervous system. They used to call it a meridian system. And these are, my little friend, I'll turn them around.
Yeah.
These are what the Chinese would call lines of energy. If you were to overlay the nervous system onto this model, you would probably find that the major nerves run pretty well parallel to the meridians.
So it's just like energy airways, is it?
The
Up and down
Chinese,
the body.
the Chinese used to classify symptoms as being too much energy or not enough. And there was an imbalance, and they would aim to restore the balance. Whereas what I try to do is, I'm sort of fairly Western with my approach. I mainly go for nerve endings, which we could call, colon 4 in traditional terms, and I mainly specialise in the treatment of backs and the symptoms of stress.
Well, now this one's got far too much energy, so here
Too
we go.
much energy.
Actually, I'm not sure I like the way he's standing. I have to stand like that when I've...
Well, you've got to have your hand on your hip like this.
Right, so this is the moment.
Right.
So you'll
Have you
see
had this
here...
before, Simon?
No, no. But I'm going to be very brave, Gloria.
And I promised him a sweetie after.
I'm not going to look.
As you can see, Gloria, nowadays we use disposable needles. I think a very wise move.
Absolutely.
So basically you use new needles for each patient. You cut them open, you pull a little needle out. You all right?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Don't look.
You put the needle into a little guiding tube like that. You find, usually you feel around for the area of pain or the acupuncture point that's in the area of pain.
And what are you putting it into? Into a muscle or what?
And this point here, you find there's a big nerve bundle underneath it. So I'm finding the point. Usually it's a little bit more tender.
You can
See?
good.
Sore.
Thank you, Simon.
Yeah.
Very good. and then you just hold that there and you just tap it
Tap
in like
it in
that.
ever so gently.
And did you notice that Simon, Devil's Advocate,
I had promised to squeal if it hurt. I didn't know you'd done it. You've got a wonderful way of tapping like that.
So how many would you put in around this area of the elbow?
usually you would feel around, probably for tennis elbow, you'd do 3 or 4. You often use a needle at the end of the nerve.
Go on, zap some more in.
Oh, I want to, please.
I'm going to.
How many can I put in you?
It's a bit tricky though. Do I have to play with them?
No, I do all of that.
Oh, right.
Now, normally, often tennis elbow can be coming from a trapped nerve in the neck, and the inflammation of the nerve passes down to a joint that's being moved a lot.
Yeah.
So in tennis, and all the vibration, the nerve can show its inflammation at the joint, and sometimes what you must do is use manipulation in the neck. Or often it's just the jarring effect of a racket.
Okay, Gary, have a go at my neck as well then, Gareth, you must.
Can I just ask you, just quickly though, Gary, what is the significance of this particular point? Is that a very important pressure point for acupuncture?
This actually, you'll find, is the most commonly used acupuncture point. It's been used mainly for the effects of stress, headaches, sinus problems, elimination. It goes on and on and on. Basically, I like using that point because it releases endorphins and they have a nice calming effect on people.
I'm loving Simon's face. I'm loving every second of this. Actually, I'm going to leave Simon along with Gary and the needles, and I'm going to move on to the subject of homeopathy. And with us is a great believer in this type of treatment, creator of Pineapple Dance Studios, Debbie Moore, is with us. We'll be talking to Debbie in a second. But first of all, our expert on it is Dr. Andrew Lockie. Very nice to see you. Now, you're actually a qualified doctor in the orthodox sense as well, aren't you?
I have been a GP as well, yes.
So how did you get hooked, if I can put it like that, on homeopathic treatment?
Homeopathy. I was looking for a type of treatment that would stimulate the body's own healing responses to help itself rather than just remove symptoms. And I felt that whilst orthodox medicine is extremely good at finding out what goes wrong, it's very poor at working out why it's gone wrong. And homeopathy offers a lovely way of getting into unlocking the secrets of what makes an illness and at what level it's come from.
So it goes to the root cause, in
Going
other
to the root
words,
cause,
yeah.
and if you can remove the root cause, then the symptoms will disappear because you've hit it at the root.
I've often heard it said that in relation to homeopathy, it's a little of what harms you does you good. It's a bit of poison, really, isn't it? Like with like.
Hair of the dog, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the hair of the dog.
Well, some of them are very powerful poisons. For instance, this is arsenicum album, which is made from white oxide of arsenic. And if this was just given to you as arsenic, I mean, you would die from it. But in homeopathy, we dilute it down so much that in some cases there's not even one molecule of the arsenic left. And it has the power to stimulate the body's own healing forces. And we believe it does this because it mimics the disease. We know that if you give small doses of arsenic to a healthy person, they will produce symptoms like, say, hay fever, for instance, with burning discharges from the nose and eyes, sore throat, maybe even going down to asthma. So if you have that picture in somebody who's actually suffering from hay fever and you give them a minute dose of arsenic, it will actually cure it.
Yes, now you see, what bothers me a bit is the fact you've got your box of tricks here, and I could go in and I could buy this in the shop, but I wouldn't know necessarily what to use for what. So Debbie, knowing that you're conversant to it, how do you know how to treat yourself?
Well, I've sort of been homeopathic, for over 20 years, and I had become disenchanted with orthodox medicines for that reason, that if you went and you had something wrong with you, you'd be given a pill or, a swollen finger is ointment, not why is it, what's the cause, and let's treat the cause. And so I sort of disliked that part of going to the doctor, that you suppressed it. And then I eventually had an illness that I put weight on very suddenly. I sort of ballooned up to 11 stone, sort of put 3 stone on in a few months. So I went to a Dr. Sharma, homeopathic doctor, and he said, now then, you've got an underactive thyroid, but what we've got to do is find out why and what's caused it, because if you just treat it, make it go away and suppress it, it's going to come back if you've not found the cause. So that's what he did.
So are you absolutely convinced then that it was complementary medicine, homeopathic treatment, that in the end cured you totally of that?
Absolutely.
So you were hooked?
I would have had to take, they told me that I'd have had to take thyroxine for the rest of my life to stimulate the thyroid gland, which the
side effects are disastrous after about 10 years. So there's a rather, your hair loses colour, your whole metabolism gets messed up. And so it's the side effects that are dangerous in drugs.
I'm just going to have to leave this demonstration area because there's so many things that I want to discuss within the whole thing, but I do obviously want to ask Debbie and Dr. Lockie to stay with us. But in the meantime, I think you'd like to give a round of applause to all our gallant people, particularly Simon. Maureen Patton, you're a great fan of aromatherapy, so how did it help you?
Well, I've had aromatherapy for about 8 years now, and I've had in that time quite a lot of stress. I did also have backache, quite bad neck ache and backache, and it helped me in that. But the main way it helped me was when my son was killed. He was killed in Botswana, and we didn't know where he was for about 3 weeks, and I had aromatherapy during that time. It sort of kept me going, not just physically, but sort of psychologically, emotionally. It helped my psyche.
You see, we were talking earlier about the fact that it is more of a cosmetic veneer, if you like, particularly when it's administered in a very simple way. So was it just a question of just making you just feel better as opposed to doing anything to
No,
you?
I think it was more than that. I think it actually, I found it uplifted my spirits as well.
So you see, if you feel better,
To Vincent Marks, who's a professor of clinical biochemistry, and you've obviously been listening there very carefully, albeit maybe in a sceptical way, been talking about some of the more mainstream complementary remedies, but I know that there's a whole host of so-called New Age therapies, and at this point I'd like to introduce you to Susie Holbeach, who's a crystal healer and dream therapist. Now I think, Susie, you're going to have to clarify the crystal bit. We hear a lot about it, but what's it supposed to do?
Well, I've done a lot of work with scientists, so this is not coming from an airy-fairy point of view. A crystal is basically silicon and oxygen, and so are our bodies, something like 68 to 70%. So the effect of a crystal stimulates the cells of the body, but it is not a substitute. It is not an airy-fairy thing. It is a complement to orthodox medicine. And working with doctors, particularly in America, where we've treated wounds with crystals, we found they got better twice as quickly, I mean.
But it's very difficult to convince people, the effect of a bit of rock, that you could actually treat an open wound. That's a bit hard to digest.
To give you a very quick example, in America we took, at one point with some doctors, 300 people, one after the other, off the street, measured the energy field around them, the electromagnetic field, with instruments, wrote it down, gave them a glass of water to drink, nothing happened. Glass of water in which a crystal had been soaked for a number of hours. And immediately everybody's field expanded to 15 feet. Okay, so what?
Professor Marks is bursting at the seams.
I know, but let me finish this. Illness, accident, and so on shows up in this field before it manifests in the body. So I think of crystals as being an aid, not a substitute, to preventative medicine.
Professor Marks.
Well, of course, the glass itself is silica, so, the water that was being consumed in the glass of silica, I don't see how it's any different from the silica that was in the crystal.
Because it's man-made.
This, to a certain extent, this is basically mumbo-jumbo. It's different, I'm afraid, from what we've been talking about before. This is a thought, concepts, and so on. It's like science fiction.
All right, well, let's take the dream analysis. Okay, dream analysis as well. How do you regard overall these New Age, this label that we put on it?
I think that, unlike many of the other things we've heard, I think it's frankly dangerous. I think that it is mind-bending, it is totally unreal, and it is, I'm afraid, I think that this is tantamount to mind-bending. I think it's unlike most of the other things that we've heard, it is dangerous.
So up until,
very seldom in the last 20 years have agreed with Vincent Marks about anything, but I totally agree with him about this. The fact is that as dissatisfaction with general medicine gets larger and more widespread, which it is, as people more and more want to do things for themselves and want to help themselves, as Simon said, they want to encourage their own bodies to get better, I think people are looking for alternatives and complementary therapies more and more. And of course there's this huge mushrooming of all sorts of total hocus pocus. Now, I wouldn't say they're all rubbish. I would say there may be a grain of truth in any of them, but they should be approached with very great caution.
You see, we even have the pyramid effect.
Well, I was about to say, the awful woman with that
Duchess of York.
pyramid. And the fact that anybody, like the Duchess of York, could be so stupid as to firstly go and sit under the damn thing, and secondly, to make it public that she'd sat under the thing. Now, what worries me about that is, somebody in her position, or other famous people who publicise or get publicised for doing strange things, if something goes wrong, they can afford to get help. They can afford to get psychiatric help or counselling help or whatever. So often, many of these so-called New Age therapies prey on the gullible, the slightly disadvantaged, the people who already have slight emotional relationship, their own position in the world sort of problems. And they get sucked in. You only have to go to the annual health exhibitions these days. And it's like a medieval fair of crystals and tarot cards and mysticism and psychics and all that total. And that, to me, detracts greatly from the serious work that's happening in competition.
So what's your opinion now?
Well, I think it's like Simon said, that self-healing thing. It's also about thinking for yourself and not assuming that somebody knows what they're talking about, as you say, because they stick a diploma. Because we've all got a certain amount of basic knowledge to know what sounds a bit as your father and a bit of fun, but no more. And I think, it's that self-healing and thinking for yourself and not being pushed by somebody looking very professional about it.
Simon?
Well, I think the best advice we've had is look before you leap and go and see your GP and talk about, because they're very open to discussion on these subjects, aren't they? I don't think it's actually dangerous to analyse dreams, I have to say. I think it's great fun.
I know. It's your own reading, it's your own assessment of where you're at. I mean, to say dreams are idiotic, to me, is idiotic.
I haven't had a proper idiotic one for a while.
Well, I'm afraid that's where we've got to leave it for today. I'm off to pop my usual 12 vitamin tablets or whatever it is that keeps me going. But I obviously would like to thank Lorraine Chase, Simon Williams, Michael Van Stratton, all our experts in the studio, and naturally enough, our audience.
Fusing and in the oil, it smells so round and so musky.
It's very expensive, isn't it, some of the rose stuff?
Yeah, the reason why I haven't mentioned rose today is because if you wanted to buy a little bottle like this of rose oil, pure essential rose oil, the real thing, that would cost you about £90.
Crumbs, yeah, but you only use a couple of drops.
Yeah, it would last you for a very long time, but it's quite a big outlay. Whereas you can buy it in this type of bottle, and it says here blended essential oil. You have to be wary of this. This means that it's rose oil diluted in another carrier oil. So you're not getting pure essential rose oil here for sort of $6.99.
So what's the best thing to do for just somebody at home who enjoys it? Should you buy the concentrate, which is the expensive stuff, and then blend it down yourself?
I mean, I would leave it up to your purse. I mean, fortunately, this brings rose into the reach of most people. But if you've got to spare £60 to £90 to spend on your top quality rose oil, do it. I mean, it's just wonderful.
And it is used seriously in some medical areas, isn't it?
Absolutely. Rose oil is considered very, very good for all women's thingies, and also for things like feelings of loss and grief and bereavement. It's known for its calming and feelings of making you feel rounded, making you feel feminine and whole again.
But this is just a general massage with it, or to have it generally in the room?
Well, if you can afford to use it in your burners and use it in your oils and sprinkle it about, yeah. But I mean, first off, I would use it as a massage oil.
Okay, well, Susie, thank you very much. Full details of Susie's advice on aromatherapy, oils and treatments, as well as the background to all our features this week are available, as always, in our latest newsletter. So just send a large stamped addressed envelope to Good Morning, PO Box 9000, Birmingham, B11NA. And Susie will be back in just a little while.
That's where I think the therapy is at its most valuable, is because you actually lay your hands on someone. I don't know what it is that happens, but there is a sort of energy or something that passes through your hands, and it's very, very healing.
A therapy course. I thought, why not? I got involved, it was really interesting, and it all happened from there. When I first told everyone I was doing massage, the deaf people weren't sure exactly what it involved, so I had to explain aromatherapy to them. I've had quite a few ladies try the treatment, and 1 or 2 men, but I was surprised that there weren't any more than that, so I asked all the men if they'd like to come along, but they were too shy. He's very demanding, and I needed time to relax.
The first time I went to aromatherapy, after the massage, I felt great. I was really relaxed. It was marvellous. It was good.
Now that did look soothing. But if you'd like to try it, make sure that you use a qualified aromatherapist and that the treatment doesn't clash with any other treatment you might be receiving. Now, here we
imagine every part of your being is filled with light, and you start to radiate that light energy from the divine through you and into the crystal that you're holding. So we ask that from this point on, this crystal may only be used in the name of love and light, always for the highest good. I'm a healer, and I think we're all healers, and we all have the ability to self-heal. So my job, if you like, is to help the person find their own way, their own trigger for the self-healing process to be activated. And it isn't necessarily going to be with crystals. It could be a rock formation. It doesn't have to be crystal necessarily. I'm a spiritual healer, so the idea always behind all our work is that we are channeling a divine energy.
How do you know that you're tying into God's energy and not the devil's?
Well, how do I know that I'm tuning into what I would call good or bad? I think I'm not sure. I'm not totally sure or comfortable with the concept of the devil. I'm not sure about the idea of this bad energy, but what I am aware of is there are higher and lower levels of working and ways of working. And before we start working as a group, when I train people or the healer, we pray. I may personally call upon Jesus the Christ, that energy. That may be something that works for me. If I'm working with other people within, say, pagan training, it may be the goddess energy. I think we must be careful we don't limit ourselves with names, that we don't restrict ourselves, but you always aspire to that very high energy. And you invoke, you pray. As we work through the 7 main energy centers, you may also wish to ensure that there is a free flow of energy from the crown down to the base, and you can feel through your hands and the energy is flowing freely.
I think we need to be clear first. The old art of palm reading has taken on a new dimension.
Yes. I don't know what you can read out of yours, actually.
Wow.
We've known for a long time
Never
that
done a day's work in their life, that's
no,
what you can
that's
read.
true. They can tell you about sort of, your love line, husbands, wives, hazards and happinesses. But now it seems that they can also tell you about your health.
Yes, indeed. Health in your hands, that's according to this book just out, which explains how our hands reflect our physical, indeed our emotional state. And Laurie Reid is the author of this book. Laurie, what do you do? This is not palmistry. This is not predicting the future. This is health.
This is to do with your health, yes. And what the hand can reveal, the hand is a brilliant register, you see, because it's got so many nerve endings. It's a brilliant register which can tell us all about our predisposition to ill health. I think it's rather like a genetic map, if you like, and various aspects of it will pinpoint particular susceptibilities that people have.
Okay, well, we're going to look at my susceptibilities now, because on screen, as you look at my hand in real life here, on screen, there it is, the hand that goes with the face there, my right hand. What do you see?
Well, now then, can I just say that I have got a photocopy of your hand, and looking at your hand here, it's a little bit difficult to see, but if I study the photocopy, I can tell you various things. Firstly, you've got a very solid hand, and it's quite meaty, so the more solid the hand, the more vitality you have, and the more ability you have to fend off disease. Your immune system is pretty good here, Eamon.
Tell that to my doctor.
Well, I can pinpoint specific susceptibilities. Now, if I can say that these don't necessarily mean that they will develop into clinical problems, but they do mean that they're weak links within your system. Now, with you, I can see that you've been through a period of stress since you were 26, and it really intensified at about 31.
So says working with me that gives me all this.
Well, actually, he's just getting over it, so I think working with you is probably helping.
What does the medical profession think of this sort of thing?
Well, the medical profession use aspects of the hand, of course, in their own diagnoses. Tremor is one of the signs that they'll look for. And, of course, how you hold your hand will tell you whether you've got plenty of spark in you, whether you've got vitality, or whether you're rather listless. So they do look at various aspects. And nails and the colour and the temperature of the hand, of course, are all confirmatory. But they really do need to hone in on specific details. And of course, hand analysis has been used for thousands of years in health
Well, my hand
practice.
is firm and meaty. Let's now take a look at Anne's hand, and what do you see there?
Well, now, with Anne's hand, and if we can just see the very difference in shape, Anne's hand tends to be, to show more sensitivity. You're more in touch with your nervous system, and so you tend to suffer with stress a lot more. I think Eamon can deal with it more than you can. Can I just say that there was one specific point that I picked up, and that shows a urological problem, perhaps something to do with hernia. Does that run in your family?
Well, not that I am going to discuss my problems on television, but I have a little intestinal spasm, as it were, brought about through tension. So the doctor says, they give me tablets for it, which relaxes the muscle or whatever in there. But I do have to say, without sounding frivolous or trivial, I found your analysis, speaking to you just before the commercial break, spot on. The bit about stress, there was a bereavement in the family which brought that about. I don't know what you made of what you were told.
Yes, you still mentioned stress with me as well.
But don't go away, because we're going to speak to you later, Laurie, as well.
It's nearly 6:45 now, time for your local news, weather and traffic.
Prayers and worship from the town of Whitby. First on BBC One, Mike Wooldridge reveals new therapies which minister to mind, body and spirit.
In the last two programs, we've been concentrating on the way an interventionist God might heal. But God's creation is writ large. We're the most complex beings within it, with all our spiritual, emotional and physical needs. When we look at healing, we need to acknowledge all three. In this program, I'll be looking at places where people are exploring those needs. One such place is the Dominican Retreat Centre just outside Dublin, where local people have come to learn about the ancient practice of reflexology, traditionally used to relieve physical symptoms. This weekend course, run by Sister Anne Alcock, aims for a deeper experience.
The whole idea of listening to the within, listening to where am I inside, to be able to meet the God in search of who the contemplative sets out, that God which is within.
On a physical level, the theory is that by exerting pressure on a specific part of the foot, a therapeutic effect can be felt in the corresponding organ of the body, both feet making up a complete body map.
So when someone comes to a reflexologist, I think they're very much getting in touch with their own capacity of healing, with the healing energy which is given us. The body heals itself, we know quite easily when we're looking at cuts and grazes. We may forget the deeper healing that happens within. When I'm working with someone's foot, there will sometimes happen that as I'm working, for example, on the colon, on the heel, it will feel as though there's candied peel underneath my fingertip. So I'm pressing there, and that's speaking to me and telling me, now here is an area that needs, we would say, balancing. Now, it could be that that person suffers with constipation, or suffers with diverticulitis, or with some other problem in the colon, and working that area, I'm getting in touch with that problem. In my own work, would use it very much for tension-related ailments, and they would say there are about 85% of minor ailments are tension-related. Comfortable, but it should feel natural insofar as your thumb is pointing down. What I found is that the fact that one comes across as non-threatening and actually touches their feet, that there's a great sense of, it's all right. Maybe they're not so bad. And then, of course, the connection, maybe I'm not so bad. Maybe my feet are all right.
and there's often a great relief. So I'll be very happy with the emotional experience that comes out of the reflexology.
Yes, yes.
Seek to get in touch with what is deep within themselves. They're often prevented by the kind of debris of hassle and nervousness and tension and noise and disintegration at the cost of living their lives in 3, 4, 5 different levels. So perhaps one of the needs of today is to allow people to become more aware and definitely to become more calm. So I see reflexology as one way, among many, not just the only way, of helping people to become aware and be calm and more relaxed and therefore better able to get in touch with the inside and the interior self. I sometimes use a quote, God in search of whom the contemplative seeker reaches out is already within, that it's just to find God within. So it is really a way of becoming quieter and then meeting that inner presence. Come to me, all you who labour and feel heavy laden, just to allow the Lord to come, to invite. Be easy with that burden, working around the neck. Ears and balance, Lord, that I may see rightly, that I may hear rightly. In a sense, may I have balance. And of course, with the thyroid, perhaps the appropriate quality is, what is the pace of my life? We all know that poster, Lord, slow me down. Perhaps it's quite appropriate, but he can't unless I know that I need slowing. So to be in touch with the pace and quality of my life.
For some Christians, it may be difficult to accept using an ancient Chinese practice to help people deepen their understanding of their Christian faith.
I think that there's always a danger that people will sometimes misconstrue and misuse something which seems unusual. But reflexology as such doesn't have a basis in any philosophy. I would always bring a Christian dimension to it. It would be, in that sense, akin to, say, using yoga, which comes also from the East. The techniques may come from a particular position, but they can also be put in another position vis-a-vis the Christian. And I would see reflexology as neutral enough at its basis to be easily used as a way of getting in touch with one's own Christian faith.